Welcome back, Blazer fans, Blazers Edge readers, to another Blazers Edge videocast. I'm Sam Tung, along with Dave Deckard. We have an email question for you today surrounding the Coach of the Year and the Executive of the Year races, and it comes from Paul. And if you'd like to be like Paul and send in an email, please do so, blazersub@gmail.com. It's been the same spot for years, so continue to send those in. blazersub@gmail.com. Dave, the question coming from Paul asks, Terry Stotts and Neil Olshey are both being mentioned as top candidates for Coach/Executive of the Year. Which one is more deserving? Are the Blazers doing well primarily because of the team Olshey put together or the way Stotts is playing them? Again, that question from Paul. I have a feeling I know what your answer to this question is going to be, Dave, because it's something that you've talked about all season long. But which one for you is accurate? Terry Stotts, I mean, you can only choose one, and which one seems more realistic? Terry Stotts as the Coach of the Year or Neil Olshey as the Executive of the Year?
Well, I think most people are leaning for Olshey over Stotts. I have the reverse for several reasons, but it'll help if we can break them down. Let's take Stotts briefly because we discussed it before, and let's take him first. First of all, I think Greg Popovich is actually going to be voted by the media members for Coach of the Year because I think, Hornacek in Phoenix and Stotts in Portland were both under consideration, but neither team performed well enough in the second half of the season. Phoenix didn't end up making the playoffs, and Portland kind of flatlined. So they didn't garner enough real media attention there. I think both will get courtesy votes, but I think they're going to decide the excitable candidates aren't really good enough, so we're going to give it to a Lifetime Achievement Award receiver, so to speak. So let's get that out of the way. I don't think either one is going to win. But you look at what Hornacek got. His players at the beginning of the year were unknowns, and everybody estimated them as very low. It didn't turn out that way. Perhaps that was because of coaching, but perhaps that was because everybody underestimated the players that they got. And Hornacek, I'm sure, did a great job. Fantastic what Phoenix achieved, but the fact was we're dealing with a big question mark as far as starting point. So how much better than average do we know he did? Whereas what did Stotts get? Stotts had a 33-win team. He did get Robin Lopez as a starter, which was a major acquisition, and Lopez has played very well. But if you've listened to us at all, that Lopez plays very well in a particular style, and if the coach did not design the system to play to that style, Lopez would not have had the impact that he had. So Stotts takes his 33-win team, juggles in a guy that you have to play a certain style with and makes that work, makes that guy or helps that guy have a career season, is still dealing with one of the most mercurial and least effective benches in all the league. Okay, that improved, but not that much. And you add 20 wins to a base that you were sure of the year before. To me, that's Coach of the Year material because we knew what he started with, we know what he got, and it was good, but it could have gone either way, and he manufactured 20 more wins out of it.
I'm going to first defend Jeff Hornacek because I think you kind of threw him under the bus a little bit on that one. I do think that no, they didn't know exactly what they were going to get out of all of those guys, but Miles Plumlee did nothing in Indiana. Gerald Green had done nothing in his entire NBA career. And he also turned, the Morris twins into serviceable NBA players. And I think that, a lot of those guys are young, and a lot of this might be development. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's development, but then there's also Miles Plumlee who couldn't see the court in Indiana, and same with Gerald Green. And all of a sudden, Gerald Green could win Most Improved. Gerald Green was out of the league a couple of years ago, and he turned him into a serviceable player. I'm not saying that Jeff Hornacek should be the Coach of the Year, but I do think that he deserves a little more credit than maybe you gave him. I will say, in terms of this argument, Dave, I think that which one has a better shot to win, not necessarily which one should win. I think that the question was which one has a better shot to win. And you mentioned Greg Popovich in San Antonio. Jeff Hornacek, obviously, we've touched on in Phoenix. I think that you have to include Tom Thibodeau into that category because what he did in Chicago, their best player got hurt for the season, and they traded arguably their second best player halfway through the season, and Tibbs' most favorite player on that team, and he's still turning them into a home court advantage teams, albeit in the East. But still, I think that those three guys do deserve some recognition. I will say the argument for Olshey is that he did bring in Robin Lopez essentially for nothing. He did bring in Mo Williams, and he did. I think that a lot of what he did was his job was to curb some regret and maybe some animosity by LaMarcus Aldridge in the way that the team was being built. And there was certainly some concern with Aldridge, and he was able to, I think, curb a lot of that. Is that going to come back up in the summer? I don't know. I mean, it's certainly possible, but I don't know if we can absolutely project that's what's going to happen. And Olshey, even though it didn't happen this season, did draft Damian Lillard, which has turned out very, very well for the Trailblazers. So, a couple of their starters plus the sixth man that's really, without Mo Williams, that bench would be horrible. And he was able to get him in that leadership role. So I think that if you're talking about the argument for Olshey, it's finding guys at a very, in a very cost-effective way, being able to, at least for a season, contain this LaMarcus Aldridge drama. And additionally, just the overall scheme of it, I think that he is more likely to win the Executive Year simply because there are too many Coach of the Year candidates that are better than Terry Stotts right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that, and it's just like the Coach of the Year. Olshey did a good job. I mean, I don't think there's any arguing that the 20-plus wins are a credit to how this team was assembled, as well as how it was coached. However, I think Olshey's problem, in my point of view, is that there's at least one exec who measurably did better. Now, let's look at what the Blazers brought in, as you said, and as we said. We have Lopez, which is, that was a good pickup, okay? Mo Williams looks good because of the bench around him. I don't think you hang your hat on Mo Williams as one of the acquisitions of the year for anybody. I mean, he's what Portland needs on that bench this year because the rest of the bench stinks. But he's not a guy that you're going to keep long-term probably, nor will change the fortunes of your franchise. Thomas Robinson is another one. He's had a couple good weeks, and other than that, maybe 4 or 5 good games all year. Trade away some second-round picks for him, fair enough, but he's not a guy that you can point at and say he's even a player yet. And if you're going to bring up Damian Lillard, which is an unqualified success story for Olshey, by the way, you also have to look at Myers Leonard, who is an unqualified not success story. So you have a lot of ups and downs there. Plus, how many draft picks do the Blazers have? 0. How much cap room do the Blazers have after all of this? 0. Okay? So it's a good job, but that's the container it's in right now. Okay? Now, let's look at Ryan McDonough in Phoenix. Brings in Eric Bledsoe, who may be the signing of the season. Brings in Gerald Green, who, as you said, may be a candidate for sixth man of the season, right? Miles Plumlee started for them, and by the way, has put up, at least per minute numbers that compare favorably with Robin Lopez, right? They've got a rejuvenated team. They've got the potential of 3 first-round draft picks this year in addition to their own, and even after signing Eric Bledsoe to a double-digit contract this summer, they are still going to be looking at $15 to $20 million of free cap space this year. Now that is Executive of the Year territory, because that is the entire package. Even if the Blazers are a better team right now than the Suns are, if you're talking about just brilliant executive moves, getting rid of your old stuff and bringing in new stuff and renewing in a way that you can build from here clearly, boy, McDonough did an amazing job. And I think that's Olshey's problem. Not that he didn't do a good job, he did, but if you look at Phoenix, it is hard to ignore the transformation that they have enacted this season.
I agree with the Phoenix argument because I think that that's probably one of Olshey's stiffest competition. But I will say it's comparing apples and oranges because the Blazers, do they have draft picks? No. But was their intention to be building for the future? No. I mean, their intention was to create, as you have talked about, in seemingly, weekly, to have an out in 2015 where they can start over completely. And they've designed this entire roster around that being the end goal for this team. They want to win or try to win in these next couple of years, which they are doing. And if it turns out that they don't see that this roster as it currently exists can have, longer term success or compete for a championship or have a championship window, they have an out. That isn't what Phoenix tried to do. No one in Phoenix thought that team was winning 50 games. I mean, there's a reason they traded Marcin Gortat for Emeka Okafor. The reason was they wanted to lose. They wanted, as we've learned in Philadelphia, it's not those guys that are on the floor that aren't trying. It's the organization putting the roster together that's sort of set up for failure. And I think that Phoenix, the way that they set that roster up was to generate assets, lose basketball games, try to get some younger guys that had some potential. There's no way anyone thought that team was going to compete for a playoff spot this year. And I think that in the preseason, to see the kind of move that they made for Gortat, I think establishes that. Plus, they had so many assets that they could have at the trade deadline made a move in order to get into the playoffs. I absolutely believe that. So,
well, I don't think that they were set up to lose. I don't think they were tanking as much as clearing space for their young guys because they knew they weren't going to use Gortat. And they got something for him. It ended up being future cap space, but so be it. So I don't think they were quite in a Philadelphia situation, but I agree that it's not like they were trying to put the team together to win 50 games this year. That happened, but your apples and oranges thing is essentially correct, except that, remember, we're not talking about who did a good job and who didn't here. They both did a good job. We're talking about executive of the year. And if you're going to give Olshey executive of the year, and the plan was to have an out in 2015 or to be good enough to really succeed deep into the playoffs in 2015, well then, you give him executive of the year in 2015 after he's shown that he can do one of those two things, right? Phoenix, on the other hand, transformed right here, right now, in a fantastic, amazing way, not just with the wins, but in every category. Like I said, that the acquisitions that Phoenix made probably trump the acquisitions that Portland made this year. Okay, the cap space and the draft picks certainly not only trump, but demolish what Portland was able to build. So for executive of the year in that context, I don't see a contest here.
It's certainly I think that you have a quality argument on both sides, Dave. We're actually at the bottom of this post. Do you have anything else? Any other your last arguments?
Last argument? No, I think I made them pretty convincingly. I know people will argue with me in the comment section, and that's great. That's what it's about. But I don't think you can come up with a convincing argument that the front office of the Blazers did better than the front office of the Suns. And I am astounded that across the league that people have inverted these two positions. And to my mind, that's crazy. But hey, maybe I'm the crazy one. Who knows?
Well, we're going to have a little piece at the end of this. You've probably already seen it if you're watching the video. A question regarding this, and have at it in the comments section because I'm curious too, Dave, and I know that you respond to a lot of stuff, so I'm curious what arguments people continue to make either with you or against you. So continue to do that here at the bottom of this post. That's going to do it for us here on the video cast today. We'll be back in a couple of days talking playoffs. So join us again for that. For Dave Deckard, I'm Sam Tung. Thank you all for joining us here on the Blazers Edge videocast. Keep it here on blazersedge.com for continuing playoff coverage. as the team faces off against the Houston Rockets. So we'll see you all soon here on BlazersEdge.com.